Deep in the far north, beyond towns, roads, and signs, lies a forest locals refuse to name. Travelers who enter often don't come back. And those who do tell stories that twist logic. Watches freeze mid-second. GPS spins like a broken compass. Even sound moves strangely. They call it the forest where time stands still. But no one agrees why. Science has no answer. Only rumors and fear. This forest doesn't officially exist. It's not labeled on government maps, only vague outlines like a smudge on satellite scans. Cartographers avoid it. Digital terrain glitches around its borders. Some say the trees rearrange themselves. Others believe something ancient lives beneath. But one thing is clear. Nobody can track time here. Not with clocks. Not with stars. Not even with the sun. In 2011, a group of hikers entered the forest. 3 returned, shaken, silent. One held a broken watch. The hand stuck at 3:17, still ticking silently. They'd only planned a 4-hour hike. But their food was spoiled, water bottles dry. Photos on their phones were corrupted. And timestamps showed nothing. They swore they were gone days. But to everyone else, they'd only vanished for hours. Phones stop working the moment you step in. Not suddenly, but like a slow fade. Bars drop. Bluetooth stutters. Voice memos distort into static. One explorer tried recording every hour. But when he returned, all files were 000 in length. Battery drained even in airplane mode. Compass needles spun. And radios picked up whispers. Not voices, just intentions. Like something listening back. At the forest's edge, everything seems normal. Until you listen. Wind doesn't behave right. It circles, pulses as if breathing. Tree branches sway in patterns. Even when there's no wind at all. Hikers report hearing their own names whispered back to them. In voices they recognize. A friend, a parent, someone long gone. But when they turn around, no one's there. Dr. Emil Kroll, a physicist obsessed with temporal anomalies, entered the forest in 2009. He wore a body cam, GPS tracker, and carried multiple watches. All footage cut out 6 minutes in. He was found 5 days later. Disoriented, dehydrated, with no memory. All devices were intact. But every timekeeping object was frozen at different hours. Before slipping into a coma, he whispered, "It's not time that breaks. It's us." Those who have crossed the tree line often describe the same thing. The air feels thicker, like walking underwater. Sound becomes muffled. Breathing turns shallow, even panicked. Some say it's electromagnetic pressure. Others blame unknown spores. But no test ever confirmed anything. Animals avoid the zone entirely. No birds, no tracks, no nests. Just silence. And that strange, crushing stillness. Like the world is paused. One explorer claimed to see a wooden watchtower deep inside the forest. Old, cracked beams. A ladder leading nowhere. But when he returned with a team, it was gone. Photos showed only trees. His journal had sketches of the tower, drawn in a hand that wasn't his. Each time he read it back, the words changed slightly, always ending with one line. "You're already too late." One theory suggests the forest bends time, but not all at once. Witnesses report seeing echoes of themselves walking ahead, seconds before they move. A woman claimed she answered her own question before asking it. Some described watching rain fall upwards, only to reverse moments later. It's not just time standing still. It's rippling, repeating, like the forest remembers. and plays it back. In 2015, a trained rescue team entered the woods to search for two missing teens. Radio contact was steady. Until it was. They never called out. No distress signal. Only static, then silence. 12 hours later, they emerged. Without the teens. And without memory. Every digital watch they carried was frozen at 4:44. One rescuer had carved something into his vest. Letters backward. Barely legible. It read, "Turn away." Many who enter describe a fog that comes without warning. Thick, cold, and when it lifts, memories blur. One man forgot his name. Another forgot his wife. Not just amnesia. It's like someone rewrote their past. Dreams become jumbled with real events. Some people never recover. They keep wandering, trying to find something they lost inside. But they never remember what. A military-grade compass was tested near the forest center. At first it spun slowly, then violently, as if pulled by something beneath. It melted after just 40 minutes. Scientists called it magnetic interference, but had no explanation for the heat. The dirt wasn't warm, but the watch the tester wore. It cracked, right down the second hand. Birds avoid the forest completely. Drones fly in, but rarely return. Navigation systems glitch, spinning endlessly. Migratory patterns bend around the area. It's as if animals sense what humans can't. That something's wrong. Fundamentally broken. One ornithologist placed a crow at the edge. It sat still, then began to scream. Not cry, not call, scream, like something it saw didn't belong here. A man once tried documenting the forest using a reel-to-reel recorder. He left it overnight on a tree stump. When he returned, the tape was full. But it wasn't his voice. A whisper repeated one phrase over and over. You hear it now. Then silence. Then the sound of footsteps, matching his own. But he was alone. Or at least, he thought he was. No moss grows here. No rings inside tree trunks. Cut a branch and it bleeds sap like it's brand new. The forest resists age. Watches rust, but trees don't decay. It's as if time doesn't move, or isn't allowed to. Some call it a natural anomaly. Others say it's a prison. Not for people, but for something else. Something that cannot leave, and must not be set free. A ranger once followed footprints deep into the forest. They were fresh and clear in the soft dirt. But after 20 minutes, they simply stopped. No sign of struggle. No exit trail. Just nothing. He backtracked to the starting point and found the same set of footprints, exactly where they began, as if the person had walked in a loop, but never moved at all. Many campers report a terrifying experience inside the forest. The inability to move. Not fear, something more physical. As if gravity increased. They lie awake, eyes open, but their bodies frozen. Some hear humming. Others see shadows above them, hovering silently. And when they finally sit up, everything's back to normal. Except their watches now show an hour they didn't live through. Carve a name into the trees, and come back days later. It won't be there. Or worse, it's changed. Different letters, sometimes different languages. One explorer carved help, but it returned as stay. Botanists say the bark heals abnormally fast, but others think the forest rejects messages, as if it doesn't want to be remembered, or wants to rewrite the story itself. Clap your hands inside the forest, and there's no echo. Scream, nothing bounces back. Even gunshots feel swallowed. It's like the trees absorb sound. But oddly, you still hear your heartbeat. Louder than normal. Racing, thudding. It becomes the only sound left. Until you wonder, is it really yours? Or something else? Mimicking it from behind. A group of students entered the forest for a survival test. 3 days in, they vanished. Only one item was found, a backpack. Inside were untouched supplies. A journal and a camcorder. The video. 12 minutes of static. Then a frame. One still image. Their group sleeping beside a tree. But the person holding the camera was also in the shot. Wide-eyed, smiling, unknown. Botanists found a tree that defied every growth pattern. Its rings weren't yearly. They followed no rhythm. Some rings moved inward. Others spiraled. When they tried to cut it, the saw blade snapped. Not from hardness, from heat. The tree was warm, alive in a way nothing should be. And above, its top vanished into fog. They never found the peak, or tried again. You can see the sun at the forest edge. Bright normal, but 10 steps in. Light fades, not like shade, like dusk at noon. Some say it's the canopy, but even clearings feel dim, as if sunlight hesitates to enter. Photos taken inside appear darker than reality. Colors shift toward gray. Shadows move strangely, and some vanish entirely, even when there's nothing blocking the light. A researcher once struck a tree with a hatchet. Sap oozed from the bark, but it wasn't clear. It was dark red, thick, sticky. Tests showed no plant DNA, no chlorophyll, no sugar, just the protein. Some claimed it was animal-based. Others refused to analyze it again. One said it smelled like iron, like rust, or old blood. And the tree, it never sealed the wound. Tune a radio inside the forest, and eventually you'll find it. A loop, static then a voice, faint robotic, repeating a date. August 9th, August 9th. No year, no context. Just that phrase, over and over. Researchers tried to triangulate the signal, but it never came from the same place twice. And no one knew why that date mattered, or who was saying it. Hidden deep in the forest is a cave. Unmarked, narrow, cold. Inside, drawings. Thousands. Stick figures standing around a spiral. Some upside down. Some with no faces. One panel shows a man walking into the forest, and a different one walking out. Different clothes, different face. Above the spiral, one word, etched deeper than the rest. Burned into stone. Return. A biologist tried bringing birds into the forest in cages. Crows, pigeons, even a hawk. Each time the birds refused to leave the perch. Some flapped wildly, but never took off. One crow forgot how to perch altogether. It fell limp, eyes open, breathing fine, but still, as if something inside its brain had been turned off or overwritten. There's a still pond inside the forest, perfectly clear, but reflections don't match reality. One hiker looked in and didn't see himself. He saw an older version, scarred eyes hollow, wearing different clothes. He blinked. The image didn't. It just stared, then raised a hand, as if warning him. He turned to run, but slipped. When he looked again, the pond was gone. Strange fungi grow inside the forest. Mushrooms with bioluminescent stems. They glow faint blue and hum, Not constantly, only when touched. The vibration isn't random. It follows a pattern. One researcher recorded the tones and found they matched ancient musical scales. No known species reacts this way, and no sample survived outside the forest. They rot in hours, or vanish entirely. In 2003, a lost hunter stumbled back into town after 3 days missing. His clothes were shredded. He was barefoot, and he walked backward. Doctors said his muscles were fine, but his brain refused to let him turn. He spoke in reverse syntax and kept repeating, "Wrong exit, not forward." He died in his sleep that night. His final words, "Make sure you leave the way you came." Scientists cut down a fallen tree to study its age. They found rings, but they didn't count forward. They repeated the same 7 rings, again and again. No variation, as if the tree relived the same year. Dozens of times. Even stranger, the sap in each ring was chemically identical, like it had never moved forward, just circled, forever locked, in one impossible moment. Say something out loud in the forest, and minutes later, you might hear it again. Same tone, same rhythm, but no one's there. It's not an echo, it's delayed. One man heard a sentence he hadn't said in years, spoken in his own voice. Whispers float through the trees, always one step behind, as if time is listening, and sometimes repeating what it likes. Moss inside the forest behaves strangely. It grows from branches, not towards sunlight, but downward. In caves it glows faintly green. Even in pitch black, samples brought outside stop growing. Some dissolve in daylight. A mycologist called it reversed photosynthesis. Others called it an adaptation. But to what? What kind of forest needs plants that run from light? A hiker's camera was set to standby. No timer, no shutter remote. When he returned from the trip, dozens of photos had appeared, all taken while he slept. Angles he couldn't have reached. One was from above his tent. Another showed him, eyes open in the dark. But he doesn't remember waking. And worst of all, in several frames, he wasn't alone. Marked trails vanish overnight. Tape unspools. Rocks move. Even carved signs disappear. One hiker marked a tree with paint, bright orange, but the next day, he found it behind him. He swore he'd walked straight, but his GPS showed spirals, like something twisted the ground, or looped the trail behind him. The forest doesn't lose you. It rewrites your path. A missing child was found sitting at the base of a tree. Peaceful, eyes closed. He'd been gone for 2 weeks, but looked untouched. No injuries, no dehydration. He didn't speak for days, just drew spirals in dirt. Doctors asked where he'd been. He whispered, "I didn't move. The world did." Then fell asleep again, murmuring a lullaby in a language no one recognized. Trail cams caught animals behaving oddly. Foxes pacing perfect circles. Deer walking backward. A bear sat in one place for 10 hours, blinking but never moving. None responded to sound or bait. One night every camera picked up a low-frequency hum, then silent. The next morning, no animals were recorded, only empty paths, and one frame, a deer staring directly at the lens. Upside down. Geologists scanned the ground near the forest center. They detected rhythmic pulses, not seismic. not natural, like a heartbeat, buried deep. Every 12 seconds, the signal repeated, always the same frequency. Some claimed it was machinery. Others believed it was alive. Whatever it is, it hasn't stopped pulsing. For over 15 years, the Earth shouldn't have a pulse. Photographers noticed something odd in the forest. Light behaved wrong. One man stood in sunlight, but cast no shadow. He moved, jumped. Still nothing. His friend took a photo and saw two shadows, but only one person. Even stranger. The second shadow moved slightly, out of sync, as if whatever was mimicking him was just a little too late. Near the center of the forest stands one tree unlike the rest. No bark, just smooth, dark wood, cool to the touch. It doesn't grow leaves. It doesn't bloom. And yet it hums. Not from wind, from within. When touched, it vibrates faintly, like something trapped inside is trying to communicate or escape. A rusted box was found buried near the roots. Inside, a leather notebook. The pages were filled with dates, but none in order. Years crossed out, moments repeated. In the final entry, it read, "I walked in 1984. I walked out in 2007. But only 3 days passed." Below that, a drawing of the same tree, and a single sentence. "It doesn't want you to leave." Under microscope, the rings of some fallen trees did something impossible. They moved, slowly but clearly, like turning gears. Some rings pulsed, changing diameter over hours, not shrinking from moisture, shifting rhythmically, like the tree was still growing, after death, or remembering time, in its own language. One scientist called it a wooden clock. Another refused to look again. A permanent fog drifts through parts of the forest. It never rises, never clears, no matter the season. Flashlights barely cut through it. Voices sound distant, even when close. Walk too far into it, and you lose orientation completely. One hiker claimed he followed his own footprints in circles for 6 hours. He never found the edge, only more fog, and a whisper, "Keep going." A camper once fell, scraping his leg badly. No blood came out, no pain, just a clean gash, perfectly still. He touched it, and the skin rippled, like water. Hours later, it began to fade, as if time reversed the injury. But when he left the forest, the wound reappeared, this time bleeding. The forest doesn't stop time. It holds it, then gives it back. People often describe a feeling, not of being followed, but observed, not eyes in the trees. Something deeper, beneath, as if the forest itself is sentient. Learning, listening, it lets some people in, keeps others out. And the deeper you go, the more it knows you, your thoughts, your fears, and maybe what you'll do next. Geologists found something embedded in stone. Not fossils, not minerals, a perfect human handprint, pressed into solid granite. Impossible. No tool marks, no explanation. It wasn't carved, it was pressed, as if time softened the rock. For just a second. Tests dated the stone to over 400 million years. So whose hand is it? And why does it match? A modern palm. Exactly. A traveler set his wristwatch right before entering. 30 minutes in, he checked again. The time had reversed. Not stopped, reversed. Seconds ticking backward. Hours decreasing. He kept walking, hoping it would reset. But when he stepped out, the watch shattered, glass bent inward. On the date, one day before he entered, he'd lost nothing, but somehow, he hadn't yet arrived. One hiker saw someone standing still between the trees. Same build, same jacket, same backpack. He called out, and the figure ran. He chased it for 10 minutes, only to find his own camp, his own fire, burning fresh, but he hadn't lit it. Inside the tent, his journal had a new entry, written in his handwriting. It read, "Don't follow him. He's not done becoming you." At the heart of the forest lies a clearing, perfectly circular, dead silent, no birds, no breeze. In the dirt, a spiral carved deep, overlapping footprints cover its edges, but no one remembers walking it. No tool made those grooves. They sink too deep. Some believe it's a vortex, a scar in time. Stand too close, and hours vanish. Or worse, never come back. A man claimed to have lived the same day inside the forest. 3 times. Same clouds, same bird call. Same branch falling at 2:14 p.m. He walked in on a Tuesday, and walked out the same Tuesday. Except, his beard had grown. Food was missing. His photos all showed different versions of the same moment. 3 timelines, stacked inside one day. An old Polaroid was found in a sealed box at a ranger station. It showed a man standing in the forest, but his face was missing. Just blank skin. Behind him, a tree that doesn't grow anywhere else. Botanists tried to identify it. No match. Weeks later, the same tree appeared in a new satellite scan, in a spot once marked clear, like the forest was growing into the photo. Every survivor says it. They heard someone say their name. Not loudly, not threatening, just softly, like a memory, a brother, a lover, a version of themselves. It never repeats, never echoes, but it always comes right before they lose direction. It doesn't chase you. It waits, and if you answer, some say you never find your way back. Metal decays fast in the forest. Knives rust within days. Cameras seize. Even stainless steel shows corrosion. But moss doesn't avoid it. It clings to it. One team left a drone overnight. When they returned, it was wrapped in vines. Its blades gone. Memory card erased. The moss wasn't just growing. It was feeding, and it only grew where time stopped. In the silence of the forest, some hear ticking, not mechanical, organic, like a heart mimicking a clock. It grows louder the deeper you go. But there's no device, no pulse, just that endless click, click, click. One explorer followed the sound for hours. He never found a source, only a tree with a hollow trunk. And the ticking still coming. From inside, insects behave strangely near the core. They don't bite, they orbit, as if drawn to heat that isn't there. One entomologist watched a swarm of moths circle his flashlight for 8 straight hours, without touching it. When he left the forest, he found one moth inside his pocket, dead, but its wings were beating. Slowly, like it hadn't realized. It was no longer alive. A camper woke up to a second tent beside his. Same brand, same model, identical, but he had hiked in alone. He called out. No answer. He unzipped the flap and found a mirror inside. Just a mirror, but it didn't reflect the forest. It showed him sleeping, still asleep, still breathing, and behind him, someone watching, from inside his own tent. Bioluminescent fungi in the forest respond to breath. Not light, not touch, breath. Exhale near them. They brighten. Hold your breath. They dim. One team tried syncing their breathing. The light pulsed in time, but then kept going, even when they stopped, as if something else was still breathing nearby, and the light was following it. Radio static near the center isn't random. Spectrograms reveal patterns, repeated sequences. One researcher translated a burst into Morse code. It spelled, "Do not wake the deep." But no signal source exists. No tower, no satellite, just that message, and others, each more fragmented, each one ending the same way, with a tone that sounds almost human, almost familiar. A camera trap captured a deer walking by. Normal, then again, same deer, same path, same timestamp, looping every 10 minutes. Even clouds reset. Trees sway the same way. Time wasn't just slowing, it was recycling, but only in that spot. Step 2 feet outside the frame. Everything returned to normal. Inside, reality was stuck. In replay, people report smells inside the forest that don't match the environment. Baked bread, perfume, smoke, a scent tied to memory. One woman smelled her childhood home. Another, her father's cologne. But no source ever found. Only scent, lingering, comforting at first, then overwhelming. As if the forest was pulling memories out to see what hurt the most. There's a tree with bark so smooth. It reflects, but not like a mirror. It doesn't show your clothes or your face. It shows something else. You but changed, worn, tired, older, or younger, or already gone. People have stared at it for hours, unable to look away. Some swear the reflection moved first. Others say it smiled. And one person said, it turned around. Rain falls normally, until it doesn't. Several hikers reported water droplets reversing midair, floating, then lifting back into the sky. One filmed it, but the footage was corrupted. Another described feeling wet, then suddenly dry. Their boots soaked, but shirts bone dry, like the storm had reversed course, or undone itself. Time doesn't just stop here. It questions cause and effect. A metal detector picked up a weak signal near a moss-covered stump. Beneath the dirt, a pocket watch, unmarked, still ticking. Exact time 11:11. But the soil around it was undisturbed. No roots cut, no insects nearby, as if it had grown there. The watch was dated 1896, and inside the lid, an engraving. I left, but time didn't. One camper woke up to find muddy footprints outside his tent. He was alone, or supposed to be. The boots were his size, his tread pattern, but he hadn't left the tent. The trail circled 3 times, then stopped. No entry, no exit, like someone wore his feet, without him knowing. He checked his pack, everything intact, except his socks, were damp. In one clearing sits a pond that's always still. Throw a rock, no ripple. Look in, and you might not see yourself. One person saw their childhood room. Another saw a funeral they never attended. It doesn't reflect the present. It chooses, sometimes memory, sometimes prediction, and sometimes a moment you were never supposed to witness. But now, can't forget. A researcher left his backpack on a marked trail. While collecting samples, when he returned 10 minutes later, the fabric was rotted, straps torn, zippers rusted, like it had been left outside for decades. But his tools inside, brand new, untouched, only the pack had aged, or been aged. He checked the tag, manufactured in 2024, and underneath it, a handwritten date, 1911. Wind through the forest doesn't just whistle. It speaks, not words, rhythms, tones that rise and fall like phrases. One linguist tried translating the pitch shifts, and swore they mimicked ancient warning chants. Others said it sounded like breath. Struggling, the forest exhales, but never inhales. It lets things out. But what exactly was trapped here to begin with? A woman who'd healed from an old injury felt sudden pain while hiking. She checked her arm. A scar she hadn't seen in years had reopened. No wound, no blood, just the same pale line. Fresh again, like time reversed only her skin. When she left, the scar faded, but every full moon, it comes back, just for a moment, just enough to feel. A camper complained of jaw pain after a night in the forest. X-rays later revealed a duplicate molar, perfectly formed, directly beside the original. No surgical scar, no growth signs, just two of the same tooth. Dental records confirmed he'd only had one. Before the trip, no one could explain it. Except him, he whispered. I felt something, chewing in sync with me. A path was cleared one evening. Axes saws, a wide clearing. By morning, a single tree stood in the center. Thick, tall, with deep roots. No one heard it fall. No stump had been left, and its bark matched none of the local species. One team member touched it, collapsed instantly, heart racing, not from fear, but recognition. He'd dreamed of this tree for years. One recording captured a whisper on loop. Faint, steady, counting down from 100. Each number spoken slowly. Then again, lower. No voice print match. No background interference. At 0, the sound cuts out completely. No static, just absent. Every test ends the same way. And no one knows what happens if you're inside the forest when the countdown ends, because no one ever tried and came back. People walking alone often report this. Hearing a footstep before taking one, like an echo in reverse. Sometimes it's their own, sometimes not. One man paused and still heard a step. Close, heavy, but when he turned, there were no tracks, only flattened grass, pressed down in the exact shape of a boot he hadn't worn. Yet, an excavation exposed roots that twisted into shapes resembling glyphs. Not random, repeated, patterned. A linguist mapped the forms and found near-perfect alignment with a forgotten dialect, used in burial rituals. But the forest predates the culture by centuries. Or so we thought. Roots don't write, but here, they spell, and the most repeated word translates loosely to remember me backward. A clock was found grown into a tree trunk, half submerged, its hands still visible. Both pointed at 12, but it wasn't noon or midnight. It was silent, not broken, just refusing to tick. Attempts to remove it failed. Chainsaws dulled. The bark closed tighter, like the forest was protecting something or someone, frozen at the exact moment. They disappeared. Birdsong in the forest isn't always natural. Sometimes it repeats words. Human words. One hiker whistled a tune. An hour later, a bird called it back, note for note, then said his name, in his own voice. He never whistled again. He said it wasn't an echo, or a mimic. It sounded like the forest was trying to learn him. A man hiked out of the forest, his gear intact, but the ranger who greeted him looked stunned. "You've been gone 2 months," he said. The man showed his phone. 3-day battery life. Still 80%. His tent was later recovered. Sun-bleached, torn, molded, like it had sat through seasons. But his food was fresh, his water cool, and he didn't feel older. Only out of sync. One stream inside the forest runs perfectly clear, but its flow doesn't follow gravity. It loops, twisting and figurates. Leaves dropped in circle back upstream. One scientist floated a stick, watched it drift past. Then again, and again. Same stick, same turn. Time and water trapped together, endlessly returning to the same moment. A current, with no destination. A camper lit a fire near dusk, watched his shadow stretch. But something felt wrong. It didn't match his movements. Lifted the wrong arm. Turned before he did. He stood still. It kept moving. He left immediately. Later he found soot marks on his tent wall. His outline, charred, but facing the wrong way, like whatever cast the shadow, was now behind him. The rustling leaves inside the forest don't just respond to wind. They respond to voice. Speak when the sound flutters back. Soft, tuned to your words, like mimicry in foliage. A biologist called it acoustic feedback. But one camper whispered his secret. The leaves rustled, then repeated it back, in someone else's voice. Someone long gone. Someone buried, outside the forest. A dropped wristwatch was found a week later. Buried shallow, but fused to roots. Not wrapped, fused. The metal face was warped. The bands stretched like bark, and the second hand ticked in slow reverse. Botanists couldn't explain it. The roots weren't damaged. The watch wasn't broken. But somehow, they'd become one, like time itself had been absorbed into the forest's memory. A trail cam malfunctioned during a thunderstorm. Later it stored one single photo. No date, no time code. A man standing in the woods, eyes closed, arms outstretched. Nobody recognized him, but his clothes matched someone who vanished in 1982. The strange part, the photo showed part of the forest, no longer there. It had burned down 10 years earlier. So when exactly was the photo taken? In certain areas, insects seemed to stop. Not land, not hover, just a freeze. Mid-flight, wings extended, suspended like puppets. Scientists called it a localized temporal pocket, but no one could explain how they restarted. One bee stayed frozen for 17 minutes, then dropped instantly, lifeless, like time hit pause, and forgot to press play again. One hiker recorded thoughts aloud, journaling by voice. On playback, a second voice answered him, soft, calm, slightly ahead of his own, completing his sentences before he said them, predicting thoughts, not repeating, anticipating. Each file ended the same. A whisper, "You're almost ready." Ready for what? He never found out. Because after that trip, He stopped talking entirely. Campers placed tents in an open space. By morning, they were surrounded. Trees they hadn't seen. Roots beneath sleeping bags. A sapling growing through a boot. It wasn't movement. It was arrival. The forest didn't chase them. It just grew around them. Quietly, deliberately. By the time they noticed, it had already closed in. Some explorers reported hearing conversations. They hadn't had yet. Familiar voices. Future phrases. One man argued with a partner about a broken compass, then heard it echo minutes before the fight began. The forest doesn't echo your past. It reaches forward, grabbing at what's next, sometimes warning, sometimes mocking, and sometimes pulling it closer, near the forest's deepest trail. A tree pulses faintly, not in wind, from within. Touch its bark, feel a slow, steady beat, like a heart, but the rhythm doesn't match a human pulse. It's slower, deeper. One biologist said it sinks to your breath if you stand long enough. Another said, it changes you. No one stays near it overnight. Not twice. Compasses near the forest's core behave oddly. Not random. They spin, then stop, but not north. They point inward, toward nothing. Not magnetic centers. Not landmarks. Just empty space. The deeper you go, the tighter the needle spins, until it settles, pointing at you, like whatever the compass seeks isn't out there. It's already inside. Campers lying awake often feel it. A breath, soft, close, but not theirs. Rhythmic inhales beside them. Sometimes above, always just beyond sight. They hold still, not from fear, from confusion, because when they exhale, they feel it again, at a different pace. A breath that doesn't match. A breath that continues. When they stop, moss spreads freely in the forest. On rocks tense skin. But in photos patterns emerge. Circles, ovals, lines, unblinking shapes aligned like constellations. No one notices in real time. Only later, when reviewing footage. And each time, the eyes are closer. As if watching isn't enough. As if the forest wants to be seen through you. People report dreaming before they fall asleep. A flash, an image, sometimes a scream. One man saw a face. Right before blinking, he opened his eyes, and it was gone, but the imprint stayed. The forest doesn't wait for dreams. It sends them early, before your mind drifts, before you can defend it. It dreams you. Some say the forest forgets, but others, they swear it remembers. Walk the same path twice. You'll find carvings you never made. Footsteps beside yours. Gear you dropped last time. Rotted waiting. It doesn't trap time. It archives it, stacks it, so when you return, it greets you not as a stranger, but as something familiar. Because once you enter, you're part of its memory forever. Tiny crystal formations grow on certain trees. No known mineral match. Tap one, and your voice disappears. Not muted, removed. Even echoes vanish. Like the sound was eaten. One scientist placed a recorder near them. The file was blank. No ambient noise. Just silent. But in spectrogram, there were shapes, like something was still speaking. Just outside human range. Bright ribbons marked a return path. Color-coded, numbered, but the next morning, they were different. Same fabric, different order, some unreadable symbols. One tag had a symbol that matched, an ancient burial text. Another spelled a name, belonging to someone who hadn't entered yet. The markers weren't moved. They'd been rewritten. By what? Or who? For 5 seconds, the sky over the forest flickered. Like a bad signal. Clouds shifted. Light reversed. Birds froze mid-flight. Then all returned. Survivors said it felt like reality skipped a beat. Like the forest glitched and corrected itself. But not perfectly. Shadows were misaligned. Voices came half a second too late. As if time rebooted, but didn't reload everything. Sensors buried in the soil recorded a pattern. A pulse, but it wasn't tectonic or mechanical. It repeated every 11.3 seconds. Too slow for a heartbeat. Too precise for chance. When graphed, it resembled a waveform. But not human. Not animal. Something older. Deeper. When amplified, the sound resembled breathing. From something massive. Still and waiting. A tree trunk near the southern trail. Grew with a strange knot. At first glance, just bark. But closer, a face, symmetrical, eyeless, mouth parted, carved naturally, not by hand. One hiker touched it, felt warmth. Later, their dreams were filled with voices, repeating a phrase, "I'm still in here." When they returned, the tree was gone, but their voice started sounding different. Thick fog settles in certain glades. Still, cold, but if you think something, it replies, not in sound, in feeling. You think of a memory, and suddenly you smell it. You remember a voice, and feel it in your ear. The fog doesn't block your senses. It borrows them, and sometimes hands them back changed. Time-lapse footage caught a terrifying truth. Tree roots moved, not from growth, but from intent. They only shifted when no one looked. Pause the footage. They froze, unpaused. They crept forward, toward the camera. One root broke the lens. When repaired, nothing moved again. But the next day, the lens was cracked. From the inside. Some say the forest isn't silent. It's too silent. So quiet, it rings, a high tone in your ear. Not tinnitus, more deliberate. It shifts when you move, flattens when you stop. One scientist wore noise-canceling gear and heard music, soft, repetitive, almost like a lullaby. But the tune wasn't from any culture we know. A hiker pitched a brand new tent. Weatherproof, pristine. Morning came, and the seams were brittle. Color faded, plastic cracked, as if it had been exposed for years. But his sleeping bag inside, still warm, still clean, nothing else changed. Only the tent, a piece of shelter, aged without time. Or maybe, in time the rest of us don't feel. Analog film captured what digital couldn't. A photo of trees, empty clearing, but under red light. Eyes, dozens, faint shapes in the leaves. Watching, even blinking. No negatives were altered. And every reprint showed more. Closer, sharper, until one shot revealed an entire face. Directly behind the photographer. But no one else had been in the clearing. Most people feel relief when leaving the forest. But not all. Some report a soft ringing. That doesn't fade. Days later, even miles away. It isn't loud, but it's constant, like a thread still attached. Doctors call it stress, but one man swore the tone matched the exact pitch of a hum he heard at the center. like the forest, wasn't done with him. A smooth stone near the northern ridge oozed moisture, but not rain, not dew. It dripped clear liquid. At intervals, like tears, lab results showed saline, almost identical to human composition. One geologist listened closely, said he heard breathing from inside it. When they tried to chip a piece, the weeping stopped and hasn't started again. Since, after a rainstorm, tracks were found in a clearing. Not footprints, words written in the mud, in cursive, perfect penmanship. No drag marks, no prints, just, I saw you. The next day, another appeared. I remember. Then, still watching, the writing deepened with each message, as if whatever left them was sinking closer to the surface. A camper recorded himself reading aloud. Simple log notes. But later, a second voice played back, identical to his. Same pauses, same breath, but not synced. It said things he never recorded. Accurate predictions, private memories. Then in his voice it asked, "Would you like to switch places?" He deleted the file, but every device since records two voices. A rescue team found a wooden marker, deep in the forest, newly carved, still damp. It bore the name of someone who hadn't entered yet, but was scheduled for an expedition next month. No one else knew his plans. No post, no permits filed. The marker waited, clean, fresh, like it was made for him. Or worse, by someone he hasn't become yet. In a dry patch of forest floor, a ranger found footprints. Human, there, but they sank deeper than possible, nearly a foot into hardened earth. No drag, no collapse, as if the person weighed tons, or time itself had softened the ground. Each print faced the same direction, toward nothing, and then suddenly, they stopped, mid-step, no turn, no retreat. In flashlight beams, certain animals had strange icing. Not red, not green, but reversed, like the reflection came from behind the retina. One photo showed a fox, with a second glint, deeper inside the pupil. Zooming in revealed a mirrored forest scene. Trees, sky, and a silhouette of the photographer. But in the image, his back was turned. A hiker set an alarm for 4 a.m., laid down, closed his eyes, and opened them again. To 10 p.m., same day, no fatigue, no hunger. His gear hadn't moved, but nearby leaves were dry. Like a full day passed. No dream, no memory. He didn't sleep through time. He slipped through it, and something might have looked back. A single tree near the western ridge echoes names, not aloud. In your mind, you think of someone, and hear it whispered inside. Sometimes a friend, sometimes yourself. One man refused to speak his name again. After standing there, he said it changed. He didn't know how, only that it felt borrowed, like the forest gave it back. Slightly wrong. An expedition found a mirror, hanging from a branch. Modern, glass intact. But when turned, no backing, just more reflection. Endless depth. They tested it with lasers. The beam never returned. One volunteer stared too long. Said he saw himself wave. Before he did. He now sleeps with no mirrors nearby. And sometimes mutters. He's still waving, even when he's sitting still. Standard compasses spin. But once, a needle didn't stop. It pointed sideways, horizontal to the ground. No magnetic interference. No metal nearby. When they followed it, the path led to a sinkhole. Inside, nothing, just depth, and a second needle buried at the bottom. Pointing up, two compasses, one direction, toward each other, across something no one could see. One area smells like cinnamon. Another, smoke. Each scent evokes a memory, but sometimes a wrong one. People remember things that didn't happen. Birthdays they never had. People they never met. The forest doesn't erase memory. It overlays it, adds edits, rewrites, until you can't tell what's real or whose memory you're remembering. A core sample from an old tree revealed an embedded frequency. When scanned through sonography, it produced a tone, soft, undulating, almost speech. Audio engineers filtered it, revealing a phrase, spoken once, low and broken, not again. But the tree was over 600 years old. So who spoke, and what had already happened? Before, a selfie taken near the edge showed two friends, smiling, but only one returned. The second vanished the next day. Nothing suspicious, except the photo. On closer look, the missing friend's face was slightly blurred, eyes out of focus, as if already halfway gone. The phone was factory reset after, but that image, still backed up, still on the cloud, still updating itself. A researcher's voice recorder auto-saved a file. Before she pressed record, dated 10 minutes earlier, it captured her voice, describing the next events, with perfect detail, even mistakes she hadn't made yet. One line stood out. At minute 12, stop running. She ignored it, kept going, and tripped at 12 minutes exactly. The recorder cracked, but kept playing. A whisper, we warned you once. Some trees show carvings, names not written by visitors. One man found his own, first and last, spelled perfectly, but he'd never been there. No other signs disturbed the bark. And deeper still, new layers showed the same name. Decades apart, different tools, same message. The forest didn't learn his name. It had always known. Sleeping in the forest isn't restful. One woman aged 4 years overnight, according to hair, skin, teeth. But her watch said 8 hours. Others wake younger, healed, reversed scars. One man grew back a tooth. Another forgot his ex-wife's name. The forest doesn't steal time. It trades it. What it gives back depends on what it thinks. You nod. In open areas, wind moves strangely. It doesn't pass by. It returns. Leaves fly up, then fall back to their branches. Ash flows into the fire. A torn page was lifted, then reattached perfectly. Not weather, something else. A reset, like time remembering what it should look like, and correcting you for interrupting it. A low pit opened after rainfall, barely 6 feet wide, but sound echoed for seconds. A call came up, not for help, for silence. A voice hissed, "Don't answer." No one spoke. They filled the pit with stone. But later that night, the same voice whispered from the ground, "You heard me," and something knocked from underneath the roots. A security checkpoint tracks every forest entry. Name, time, route. But one day, the log showed an exit, with no matching entry. A man walked out. No ID, no gear, just a smile, and eyes that didn't blink. He said thanks, and left. No one stopped him. The cameras glitched. His face never recorded, only his boot prints, leading back inside. Campers lit a fire near the southern ridge. It burned blue. No heat, no smoke, but the wood turned to ash in minutes. One man held his hand above the flame. Felt nothing. Then frostbite set in. Doctors couldn't explain it. His skin cracked like ice. The fire didn't warm. It consumed, in reverse, as if it took heat. From the future, loggers tried clearing a dead tree. Chainsaws dulled. Axes bounced off. They set fire to its base. But the flames bent away. Not up, away, like repelled. The tree didn't burn, didn't fall. Next morning, it had shifted slightly, closer to camp, its roots exposed, but pointing toward the tents, like it had taken a step. During the night, strips of bark from a hollow tree contained tiny grooves, not random, rhythmic. One technician scanned them with audio software, and sound emerged. A voice, repeating a question in a language no one recognized. The pattern matched old phonographs, but there was no metal, no recording tech, just wood, and a whisper. You finally listened. Then static, then nothing. A shallow stream runs near the eastern path. Not deep, clear, but once, a camper saw movement. Not a fish, a hand, pale still, reaching up. He blinked, it vanished. Later his camera showed no splash. Just water, and one frame, of 5 fingers resting just beneath the surface. Not reaching out, waiting to be taken. A woman sat by the fire, speaking aloud to stay calm. She asked the question. No one answered, but she heard a whisper, played back her own recording. And the whisper was hers. Same voice, same tone, but she didn't say the words. I see it too. She stopped recording, but every device since picks up her voice, even when she's silent, even when she's not present. Clap your hands in the valley. Wait 5 seconds. The echo returns. Then again 5 seconds later. And again, a pattern of delay. But each echo changes slightly. Slower, lower. One clap became 6 echoes. Then 12, until the valley sounded full of invisible hands. Clapping back, each one slightly, out of sync with reality. Some fog carries scent. Not forest, not rut, but memory. One camper swore it smelled like her grandmother's attic. Another like chalk dust from 2nd grade. These aren't general scents. They're specific, too specific. The fog triggers feelings, then tears, then silence, as if it knows what comforted you once, and offers it up, before taking something else. There's a hollow near the northern bluff, where no sound escapes. Yell, nothing, footsteps gone, breathing silent. Microphones record nothing. Even thought feels quieter. People enter, and feel like their existence dims. One visitor wrote a note. It's like being erased gently. He came back different. Talked softer, moved slower, like part of him never left. A skeleton was found near the ridge. Old, weathered, inside the chest cavity. A watch, still ticking, but not standard time. It moved erratically. Paused, sped up, ticked backward. The bones were dated to 1800s. The watch, manufactured in 2022. No ID, no record, just time, stored where a heart once beat. A ranger hiked into the forest and saw a tent. Old, worn, but familiar. Same color, same model he used decades ago. He approached, found his initials carved inside. Same spot, same blade mark. But he'd never camped there. Not once. The logbook confirmed it. So who had? And why did they pack gear that hadn't been made? When he was young, a geologist stepped on a loose stone. It hissed, then sank. Later his shoes had burn marks. On the top, as if pressure reversed upward. The rock's surface measured negative resistance. It pushed from within, against gravity, as if it refused to be touched, or buried, or known. One word was carved faintly underneath. Above, maps marked a glade with clear coordinates. Flat, open, unmistakable. But next day, it was gone. Same GPS. Only trees. The glade was found again. A quarter-mile north. Same flowers. Same fire pit stones. Like it had picked up and moved overnight. Not hidden. Relocated. As if staying still was never part of its nature. After leaving the forest, a man found seeds in his coat. He hadn't picked any, but they'd grown. Tiny shoots, rooted in fabric. No soil, no light, just heat. They pulsed faintly, not with water, with rhythm, like heartbeats. He burned the coat, but a week later, he woke with green stains on his chest. Certain clearings give off a vibration, very faint, but if you stay still, it syncs with your heartbeat. At first comforting, then alarming, because when you stop, it doesn't. The pulse keeps going, as if it liked your rhythm, and decided to keep it. Even after you leave, you feel it, at night, in silence, the forest, still beating, on your behalf. One camper lit a lantern, watched shadows flicker, but one didn't. It stayed still, no matter the light. Flat, wrong, then it exhaled, a warm breeze from the wrong direction. His fire dimmed. The shadow leaned forward. No eyes, no form, just weight, presence, and the faint sound of lungs remembering breath. He ran, but still hears it. When he turns off the lights, one tree leafless pale, reflects moonlight like metal, but not just glow. Reflection, a full, perfect moon, even on new moon nights. Astronomers confirmed. The angle made no sense. The moon wasn't out, yet the tree cast shadow, as if it were. One night it reflected. Two moons, one above, one wrong, tilted, moving in reverse. A tree near the southeast path had smooth bark, too smooth. Touching it felt wrong. Not wood, skin, warm with faint pores. When scratched, it didn't flake. It bled, thick yellow-red. Lab results came back inconclusive. No plant protein, no tree DNA, just tissue, and under the bark, a rhythm, pulsing, like breath or sleep. During storms, voices rise with rainfall. Not thunder, not echo, conversation. Half heard. One hiker heard his father's laugh. Dead 15 years. Another heard lullabies in a language he didn't speak. The forest doesn't summon ghosts. It remembers sound. And rain, somehow, plays it back, like the sky leaks memories that never belonged to you. A mounted GoPro filmed a solo hike, but playback showed two people, side by side, same clothes, same backpack, but no shadow for the second. It moved a split second out of sync. Never looked at the camera. When reversed, only the second figure remained. and at the end, it waved directly at the lens before vanishing into static. A man called out in the night. Thought he heard movement. No answer. He tried again. This time, a voice answered from inside his empty tent. Not shouting, not human, just one word. Closer. He unzipped the flap. No one there, but his sleeping bag was unrolled. Warm, used, and inside the pillowcase was a recorder, still playing his own voice. After a lightning strike, a tree burned for 12 hours, but the ash remained warm. For 12 days. No heat signature, no fire, just constant warmth, untouched by wind or rain. Touch it, and you feel calm. Too calm. People linger too long. Forget why they stopped. Forget the path back. The forest keeps warmth, like it keeps time. Forever it's smoldering. Most fog in the forest stays inside. But one man came out, and the mist followed. Light, cool, clinging. It wrapped his boots. His shoulders didn't lift for days. Photos showed haze. Wherever he went, even indoors. He said it whispered sometimes. Low, regretful, like it missed home. Like it hadn't meant to come back with him. A hiker tracked time with an old analog watch. It didn't tick during the day. Hands still, frozen, but each morning, they had advanced. Always exactly 8 hours. Even if he didn't sleep. Even if he stayed awake. Watching it, nothing, only darkness made it move. And sometimes, not forward, once he woke to find, the date had jumped ahead. 3 years. Trees don't turn, but in the forests deep. Some do. Their trunks twist overnight. Their roots point inward, and their branches line wherever you sleep. Campers report the same thing. Waking to find every tree. Facing them. Silent. Watching. No wind. No tilt. Just direction. Like the forest adjusted itself. To observe. Your next move. A trail cam was left running for 7 days. Set to auto stop. It never did. The SD card kept recording. Loop after loop. Past its limit. Past power. On playback. One frame showed a figure walking by. Then again. And again. Each time slightly different. Clothes aged. Hair grayed. Until in the last frame, he looked straight at the lens and mouthed, "Please stop me." Branches from separate trees began to twist. Not fallen, still living. Their ends curled inward. Braiding, a pattern, looser than tight. A ranger cut them apart. Next day, they were woven again. But this time, with more, 12 branches. Then 20, until a lattice formed above his tent. And beneath it, no sound, no birds, only waiting. Sometimes laughter echoes in the trees. Light, airy, almost human, but always slightly wrong. Too crisp, too exact, like a recording, played on loop. One hiker followed it, found a clearing, empty, but full of laughter. She recorded it, but on playback, heard only herself laughing. Even though she never did. A team arrived at base camp late. Expected cold, dark, but found the fire pit warm. Logs glowing, food unwrapped, chairs in a circle. None of them had arrived first. No one passed them. They checked motion sensors. No activity. No tracks. But someone had prepared for them. And whatever it was, still had a seat open. The deeper you hike, the colder it gets. Not wind, not altitude, A chill from beneath. The soil frosts overnight. Even in summer. Cameras show no animals, but infrared reveals a shape, spanning miles, still, resting. The cold isn't weather, it's proximity, and if you stay long enough, you start to feel that it's waking. A hiker kept a journal. Each night he logged the day, but one morning, he found a new page, written in his handwriting. Date tomorrow, describing events that hadn't happened. Yet, he followed it like a map. Every detail matched. Until the last line. This is where I disappear. He turned the page. Blank, just an imprint, as if words had once been there, but were removed. A biologist tracked tree root movement for soil studies. Placed motion sensors near his tent. Every night the roots moved. Not randomly. In a line, following where he'd walked. Mapping his steps. He covered the area in salt. They stopped, but in the morning, his boots were gone. And near his pillow, fresh prints, small, like toes made of bark. Every time someone split from the group, they heard music. Just faint tones. A music box. A child's song. But only when completely alone. Not in recordings. Not through radio. Only in person. Some followed it. Never came back. Those who returned said it stopped right when they began to sing along. And that's when the voices joined in. A drone traced a trail into the forest. Circular. It should have overlapped eventually. But didn't. Hours of footage. Constant turning. No repeats. It wasn't a loop. It was a spiral inward. Closer. Tighter. Until the feed cut out. The last frame showed no trees. Just dark soil. Smooth. And a single footprint. Pointing down. A pond near the center reflects wrong. Not clouds. Not stars. But constellations no astronomer recognizes. They shift as you watch. Some blink. One night it showed a solar eclipse. But no eclipse was scheduled. And above, clear sky. The reflection isn't of this world. Or this timeline. Some believe it's the sky. From a time that hasn't happened yet. A man packed alone. One sleeping bag. One bedroll. But during the night, he heard breathing beside him. Steady, peaceful. He turned, saw the extra bag. Unzipped. It rose and fell. Like lungs. No body inside. Just motion. He backed away. By morning it was empty again. But when he checked the bag's tag, it had his name. Twice, botanists discovered a vine that pulsed like LED. Blue flashes, in rhythmic patterns. They mapped it and found Morse code. A full sentence. I am still here. But no machine was nearby. Just leaves. No wires. No roots. When cut, the light stopped, and every nearby compass spun violently, as if they'd silenced something that wasn't ready. A pile of leaves burst into flame. No spark, no heat source, just ignition. It burned cold. No smoke. One researcher filmed it, but the camera picked up static. Only one frame remained. A silhouette behind the flame. Not human. No face. Just outline. And two long hands, reaching toward the lens. The fire left no ash. Only shadow. A hiker fell asleep at sunset. Woke to sunrise. But he was older. Gray streaks. Wrinkled palms. His ID photo no longer matched. He checked his camera. Nothing recorded, except one blurry video. It showed him asleep, and a second him, watching from the trees, smiling, wearing the same watch, but showing a different date. Years ahead, a deer watched campers from the ridge, unmoving, unblinking. Hours passed. It didn't eat, didn't twitch. Its eyes were wrong. Too smooth, too glassy. One camper approached. The deer turned, but only its head, not its body. Later hoofprints showed. Only 3 legs. The 4th print, human, barefoot, pressed deeper than the rest. A digital watch began a countdown. No buttons pressed, just numbers falling. 1 hour, then 40 minutes, then 10. It hit 0 at 3:17 a.m. Nothing happened until the next night. Same countdown, same time, then again, and again. He buried the watch, but each night he hears the beep at 3:17. And in the trees, a red blink answers back. Time-lapse footage showed the soil rise and fall. Inhales, exhales, measured, like lungs under the forest floor. One researcher laid flat, to feel it directly. His heartbeat synced. Too fast. He blacked out. When he woke, the soil was smooth again. But his shirt was damp with dew, and on his chest, a single leaf, with his name etched in veins. Fog is common, but this mist moved too deliberately. Not drift, motion, with form. People saw limbs, shoulders, faces, only for seconds. Then gone. Photos showed nothing, but infrared revealed outlines. Taller than human, too thin. The mist doesn't rise from the ground. It arrives, and sometime lingers behind, after you leave. Campers heard a voice at night. Low, distant, speaking backwards. Audio was recorded, reversed, and slowed down. One phrase repeated. You left me here. No one was missing. No name given. But the cadence matched someone's voice, who hadn't entered yet. The forest doesn't wait to echo your past. It sometimes plays your guilt before you feel it. Fire reflects light. But one night, the flames danced wrong. Reflected faces that weren't around the fire. Older, wounded, familiar. One person saw their childhood self. Another, their body in a casket. The fire crackled louder, and the shadows behind moved faster than the flames, like the past was trying to crawl through the reflection and rejoin you. As a final test, a hiker shouted goodbye into the deepest ravine. Silent, then his own voice echoed back. Not immediately. 10 seconds later, and not matching the tone. Softer, regretful, it repeated, goodbye, then again, until the voice changed. Deeper, not his, but using his words. And the final echo said, you were never supposed to leave. A ranger left a hand-drawn map on his desk. Accurate, measured, but by morning, the ink had shifted. New lines, paths added. One section erased completely. He hadn't touched it. The paper was undisturbed. And when compared to GPS, the new version was correct. Even landmarks no one had discovered. Yet, like the map, was updating itself, ahead of time. Near one campfire, ice formed in rings. Thin layers, concentric, like growth lines in a tree. But the air was warm. The fire burned steady. A cup of water beside it froze solid, inside the ice. A feather, still soft, not burned, not cracked, like time froze only part of reality, just enough to remind you It could. A camper took a selfie in front of a waterfall. Nothing strange, until he noticed his eyes. In every photo, they looked slightly left, not into the lens, into the forest. Zooming in revealed something in the tree line. Faint, shaped like a person. In later photos, his eyes were turned further, like whatever stood there was coming closer. Each time he smiled. Some return home with missing time, but others lose knowledge, a language, a birthday, the smell of someone they loved. Doctors call it trauma, but patterns emerged. The forest always takes something personal, never random, always something you denotice. Too late, as if it doesn't erase your memory, but choose it, what you're no longer allowed to remember. One hiker carried a pocket mirror, used it daily, but on the fifth day, his reflection looked older, lines deeper, eyes sunken. He felt fine. Others said he hadn't changed, but the mirror disagreed. Every day, his reflection grew older, until it stopped showing him at all. Only the forest, silent, behind him, and something in the trees, mimicking his every move. A thunderstorm hit unexpectedly. Sheets of rain, but instead of soaking the ground, droplets reversed, flew upward, leaves dried mid-storm. Streams emptied back into clouds. It lasted 10 minutes. Then all at once, normal rain resumed. No puddles, no mud, only one soaked backpack, hanging from a branch, 5 meters off the ground. Strapped closed, from the inside. A camper returned to pack his tent. Pulled the pegs, all but one. The final peg wouldn't budge. When dug out, it had changed, covered in bark, tapered to a root. It twitched slightly, still metal underneath, but becoming something else. He left it behind. 2 days later, a sapling grew in its place, identical in shape to the peg he hammered in. One night a hiker dreamed of falling through trees, into shadow. He woke gasping, felt fine, until he removed his shirt. 3 long scratches down his back. Fresh, bleeding, no branches in sight, no animals nearby. His sleeping bag was zipped. The forest doesn't hurt you while awake. It waits until you trust your own mind to be safe. A rabbit sat beside a stump, unmoving, eyes locked on a camper. For hours, no twitch, no fear. Even when approached, it didn't flee. The camper blinked, and the rabbit vanished. But later, he found photos on his phone. Dozens, all of him sleeping, taken from inches away. And in one frame, the rabbit, standing upright, still watching. 2 hikers returned from a day trail to find one tent gone. Not stolen, not moved, just gone. No drag marks, no trace. The grass was flat, but warm, like something had sunk. Straight down, they dug, 1 meter, 2, then hit fabric, a corner of the tent, folded inward, and just before pulling it up, they heard a zipper from beneath the soil. Some sounds don't echo, others leave silence behind. A scream at the river was followed by 10 seconds of complete quiet. No birds, no insects, even machines went still, like the scream emptied the space. Later the recording cut out, exactly at that moment, and every second after was just static, until one final whisper. Don't call for help. A path was mapped using stakes and string. Dead straight, surveyed by GPS. But when walked, the route bent, turned slowly. By the end, they'd gone in a full circle. Without noticing, the string had no knots, no breaks. The stakes were still aligned. It was the ground that moved, like the forest, didn't want them going anywhere. But back, an abandoned ranger tower held a chalkboard. One word ENTRED. Beneath it, tallies, 14, but only 13 were in the group. No one else had arrived. They checked bags, counted faces, still 13, but each night, a new tally appeared. Silent, fresh. By the end of the week, there were 21, and no one remembered adding the marks or mating anyone new. After a storm, roots were exposed along a hillside. Twisted, tangled, but from above, they spelled something. One word, 6 letters, written in perfect English. STAYOD. The group dismissed it. Coincidence, pareidolia. But the next day, new roots surfaced. Another word, longer. No one dug. No one touched them. And the roots kept writing. Only at night. One hiker journaled daily. Noted sunrise, meal times, distances. But on the 7th night, sunset came and didn't leave. The stars never rose. The forest stayed in twilight. Forever dusk. His watch ticked, but the sky refused to change. He wrote, "I think I broke the day." That was his last entry. They found his tent intact, but every clock inside still reads 7:03 p.m. Flocks sometimes appear above the trees, synchronized, beautiful, until you notice. They're flying in reverse. Wings flap the wrong way. Formations collapse midair, then reform, as if undoing their own motion. One fell, feathers scattered upward. It vanished into the clouds. The forest doesn't defy physics. It rewrites them, moment by moment, to match something older than natural law. A man wandered too far. He heard a voice, his own, but older. It asked one thing: trade with me. No offer, no terms, just that. He said no. It didn't return. But when he left the forest, his shadow lagged slightly, half a second too late. And some nights, his voice echoed, a word he hasn't spoken. Yet, most ponds reflect. One does not. Perfectly black. No sky, no face, just void. A hiker dropped a flashlight. It vanished without splash. Soundless. Days later, the flashlight was found. In a different lake, miles away. Dry, fully charged. The label, worn smooth, as if time passed around it. But not through it. Trails usually fade. But here footprints remain. Not just for hours, for days. Perfect depth, even after wind, even after rain. One ranger noticed something stranger. He followed old tracks and saw his own boots pressed over them. Same gait, same spacing. He hadn't been here before, but the forest had already remembered him. In one clearing, time stutters. Birdsong loops, light flickers, but then everything turns. The wind shifts, trees line, and the stillness breaks. It's as if the forest pauses to look at you. Not metaphor, not fear, actual focus. Survivors describe the moment differently, but always with this line: it saw me, not with eyes, with intention. One night a camper watched flames flicker and saw scenes in the smoke. His childhood birthday, a fight he never forgot, Moments no one else knew. The fire replayed. Everything. When he tried to look away, the air pulled him back. And for a moment, the flame spoke, not with words, but with recognition, as if it had seen his entire life. Already, at dusk fog rolled in, thick, silent, until you stood still. Then, singing, low, in reverse, like a lullaby being rewound. No words, just hums unraveling. A chorus from no mouths. One scientist recorded it, played it backward, and wept. It matched a melody his mother sang, on her deathbed, a song he hadn't heard since he was 5. Campers looked up, paused, 2 moons, both full, one slightly dimmer. One's not moving. Telescopes confirmed. No detail, just blank white. No crater, no surface. Then the real moon passed behind a cloud. And the other, blinked, gone in an instant. But for the rest of the trip, shadows doubled, as if something stayed. Just beyond, the second light, flat stone, warm to the touch. No carvings, no markings, but press your palm down. And it hums, not random, structured, the rhythm of a language without words. A child touched it once, and began to cry. She said it said, "You're not the first." And when asked what else she heard, she whispered, "But I might be the last." At the trail's end, a gate, wooden, old, but new, like just placed. No record of construction. No nails, just standing. When passed through, GPS reconnected. Time resumed, but a camera left running at the gate captured something chilling. Each hiker passed twice, once entering, once leaving, except for one. Only one exit. The entry, never recorded. After leaving the forest, a hiker found a scar. Small, faint, on his side, but he had no injury. A doctor examined it, said it matched a healed incision. But the hiker never had surgery. That night he dreamt of someone else. In pain, lost, trapped, he wonders now what the forest gave him. In exchange for walking out whole, one camper brought a mirror for shaving. After the second night, he heard tapping from the glass. Not cracks, not bugs, but rhythm. It continued even when covered. When he spoke aloud, the mirror replied, but only inside its reflection. No audio, no mouth, just word, matching his speech, half a second late. And when he turned away, his reflection kept watching. One abandoned pack was found zipped shut. Full, but light. Inside, nothing, no gear, no rations, just a ticking, slow, mechanical, no clock, just sound. It ticked for 11 days, before stopping. When opened again, the bag was full, with gear from 5 missing hikers. All marked, all intact, but no one had ever seen them leave the forest. As the last researcher packed to go, he tested the forest's edge one more time. Clapped, shouted, no reply, then whispered, "Is anyone there?" The wind paused. Then a voice replied, not from the trees, from the space between. "Are you?" No one else heard it. But that was the last time he was seen, outside of dreams. No signs marked the trailhead. No fences, no warnings, just trees, still, ancient, breathing. The forest doesn't pull you in. You choose to step inside, to test the stillness, to hear the silence. But once it knows you, it keeps a version A footstep, a whisper, a name. So if someday you feel a second heartbeat, just know the forest hasn't forgotten.